Hi, I'm Lottie Smith and I'm an artist from the northeast of England in the United Kingdom. I'm a sculptor and I work mostly with cardboard, so I'm in my studio at the moment, surrounded by some little bits and pieces which are leftovers. I've also been asked before to make 2 inventions to bring them to life for little inventors. Both of the prototypes of invention ideas that I've made were both from climate challenges. So the first one was the compost bee by Harrison. This was to help reduce food waste and help people compost at home when they didn't have a garden. And the second one was the Sea Sweeper by Laney, and that was designed in order to help clean up the oceans, to help remove all of the plastics from the oceans and help the animals that live there. So I'm here today to try and teach you some prototyping skills which may come in useful in bringing your own invention ideas to life. So I know that you've been working on climate-saving inventions, so things which will help out the planet. And one of the biggest things that we can do to help the planet is by stopping using oil and gas and using renewable energies, things like solar and things like wind power. So for our prototype today, I'm going to be teaching you how to make a working turbine and using wind power, but in this case, your breath, to turn rotational energy of wind on the turbine into a lifting motion, and then next video will be on turning it into a forward motion. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the camera around down onto my desk and we're going to get started. So you're going to need a ruler, pair of scissors, stapler, pencil, some tape, either thin or thick, some thicker thread or some thin string, a paper coffee cup, big one, little one, and if you can't find one of those, a small box, some small piece of packaging. You're going to need a cork, and if you don't have a cork, just a plastic lid from a bottle. So you're going to need 2 art straws, so that's both widths that they come in, so you can fit one through the middle of the other. If you've only got one size of straw, so just standard home straws, you'll just need a piece of paper like this, just standard printer paper. And finally, you're going to need some thick card or kind of cereal box weight card for your propeller. Okay, we're going to start with making the propeller part of the make. We're going to need your thick card, you're going to need a ruler, and you're going to need pencil, scissors, stapler, and the thinner one of your 2 art straws. If you've only got one size, then just use the straw that you have, and we'll make a wider one a bit later. So to begin with, you want to get your ruler and use your ruler to make a mark 10 centimetres from one of the ends. If you make a little mark like this, and another mark further up at the 10. You can then use your ruler to join these dots up. Then we're going to be turning our ruler the other way, and we need 2 3-centimetre strips. So if we make a mark at 3 and at 6, move the pencil along again, 3 and 6, and you can use these dots to join up and make the lines across for your 2 propeller blades. You can see my ruler is actually about 3 centimetres wide already, so if you do have a ruler that happens to be the right width, you could just put it on the paper along the edge and run your pencil down both sides to save you having to measure it. Next, you need to create these kind of curves at the end of your propeller. Now, they don't have to be curved like this, they could be at an angle, you could maybe try different things. But to do a curve like this, you can see on my ruler there's a little curve that's already there, which I can just trace around. But if you don't have a ruler like that, if you use the inside of a roll of sellotape and line it up, do a pencil line, you'll get a curve like that. And you can also do it by eye. There's no right or wrong way. Now we just need to cut these out. So now you've got your two pieces like that. Just line them up on top of each other with the curved end at the same end. And get your straw that you'll be using. Now I need to use your ruler here to make a mark at about 15 centimetres along. Now this might need to be a different size depending on the cup that you use, but 15 centimetres is a good size to start with, and you can always make it shorter if you need to. So get your pencil, make a little dot onto the paper, a little line, and then you can use that mark to cut it to the correct length. Once you've got your 15 centimetre straw, you need to choose one end, squeeze the end flat like this, about 2 centimetres up is about right, and then make a central cut up between 1.5 and 2 centimetres like this. Once you've done this, you need to squeeze out the two sections flat again, and this is so you have a bigger surface area for your stapler. I'll show you in a minute the difference it'll make. So once you have that, line up your two propeller blades, square ends into the slot between the straws. And you want it to be central like this. So you don't want it to be up on a side like this. Try and get it as close to the middle as you can, and so that the blades are straight and not angled. It's a bit fiddly, but if you get your staple in and secure it, don't worry too much if the stapler is a little bit to the side. You can always put it back on from the other side and give it a second staple if you're worried. You can see here how it's quite close to the edge. That might happen because the straws are quite small. And that is the first bit of your propeller done. So now I need to bend the blades into position. So if you hold it straight on your tabletop like this and bring it down, you don't want the angle to be completely straight but a little bit down. There's a bit of variance as to what will work, so maybe you can compare with each other how your propellers work. So once you've done one fold like this, flip it over and match the angle with the second one. So if you look at the shape on both sides, you're looking for a mirror image. And if you look at this shape left over at the top, you will see that there is a small V shape like this. And that's what to look out for. You want that V shape and the bottom point of the V to be above the straw. Once you've done that, you can open the propeller wings out a little bit, and that one is ready to fly. So to show you what I was referencing earlier about opening the straw back up, if you were to just cut it like this, so you've cut it, but you haven't done that opening back up stage, and you've left it as these two thinner pieces. When you put the straw on, you can see here, we've got a much thinner strip in order to fit the stapler on, which will be a little bit harder. And also you can see that the two sides don't actually line up, they're side by side. So when you staple, you're more likely to catch one side but not catch the other. Can you see how they are next to each other rather than on top of each other? So whilst it will work this way, it is a little bit harder to get the staple in the correct position. So you can see here I've put the staple through, and it's not really quite holding on the other side, so you will definitely require two staples if you do it this way. It still works okay, but it's not the strongest method. So again, fold the propeller down on both sides. You don't want it to be too far down and you don't want it to be too far up, somewhere in between. And the other little tip I have here is if you fold it, make sure you fold it once. If you completely reposition it, like I'm showing here, over and over again and keep pushing it down, you'll find here that the paper is weakened. And when you try and use your propeller and you blow against it, these weaknesses will cause the propeller to flap around. So they'll be less efficient and will work not as well as if you've only folded it once. So don't be tempted to keep refolding. If you really mess it up, just cut yourself another couple of pieces of paper. But whatever angle you decide on, just try and stick with it and see whether that works. You can always make a second if you think that you could improve it. That's what prototyping's all about. So next up, we're going to be making our base. So you need your wide straw and your cup. If you take a ruler and measure 9 centimetres, which is the right size if you've got a 15 centimetre straw for your blade, make a mark, cut it off, and you'll be placing it on top of the cup like this. You can see we've got an even amount of overhang on both sides of the object. You can see at the end where you've cut it here, you want both ends to be nice and crisp. So if you find that one end like this is a bit crushed in, or there are bits of curled paper going down, then just reshape it as best you can and take a tiny bit off with your scissors to create a nice sharp end. That's because we're going to be putting the propeller through like this and we need it to turn, and any little bird edges will increase the friction and make it not work quite so well. So once we've got this, we place it on the top and we need to fix it there. Tape is the best way of doing this. So we get a length of tape, put it over the top and affix it to both sides like this. And we want it to be firm so it doesn't have a wiggle, but we don't want to crush the straw so that it goes down in the middle. We need to keep that straw fully open so that the propeller can rotate. Just give it a wiggle to check. If you've only got thin tape, then you maybe want to do 2 pieces of tape, one at either end, to stop any kind of wiggle. So I'll show you that on this box here. Okay, so if you're using this box, you want the same kind of overhang on either end. So if that's longer than 9 centimetres, then that's a bit longer than 9 centimetres. So if you start with 1 piece of tape, again, over the top, down the sides on one end, and you can see with one, you've still got this wiggle. So if we get another one, pop it over the other end, that will just reduce that wiggle a little bit. You get yourself some printer paper, so just thin white paper. I've just used a scrap piece. You could use the back of an envelope. It's just something that rolls up easily, and you want to cut it to the width of 9 centimetres, which is what the large straw was, and you want to roll it around a smaller straw like this. Now you don't want to roll it super tight. You want to leave it so it has a little bit of a wiggle, so it's really easy for the propeller to turn round and it's not being held by the larger straw. If you roll it around maybe 5 or 6 times, then those layers will build up and it will make it a bit stronger. If you cut off any excess like this and grab a piece of tape to keep it closed. If you use a piece of tape along the whole length, that will keep it even all the way down. If you stick that on securely and just make sure there's no overhang of tape. So if you get a bit like this, just snip it off because you don't want that sticking onto your propeller and stopping it turning. So that's an alternative if you don't have 2 sides of art straws. Okay, so next up we have our propeller, and you can give it a test. Blow into it, see whether it spins round nicely. You might have to try different angles, so from the front, from the side, from the bottom, and see which one works best, which wind direction works best for yours. So next we're going to create the lift at the other end. So you're going to need a cork or a bottle lid if you don't have a cork. So if you do have a cork, you might want some help from an adult for this, but if you cut yourself a little strip from the end of your cork, like this, and then you can use a pencil to push out a little hole from the centre in order to get your string through. So the reason I suggest using cork is it's very light, which means that it lifts very easily because we're just using our breath on these propellers. Then we want something really light, so it actually makes it possible. So next, if you're to get yourself a piece of thick thread or some thin string, and the length of this depends on the height of your cup. So you want your piece to be a little bit longer than your cup so that it sits on the floor when it's at full length. Remember to leave enough little bits for knots and for attaching. So to start with, we're going to put the cork on one end. If you're using the cork, thread it through, tie a knot, add on an extra knot just so it doesn't fall off. And if you're using a lid, you could get yourself a piece of string and a piece of tape and just tape the string on like this. You might well be able to push a hole through with a pencil as well. Some plastic lids are very thin and some are thicker, but that's a perfect way of making it work as well. So once you've done that and you've got your weight on the end of the string, we're just going to be attaching it to the end of the propeller. So on this example, that's the yellow piece of straw, not the green one. So to do that, we just need to cut ourselves a small piece of tape, like this, place it on the end of the string, and then stick it onto your straw. Now we don't want to put the string too close to the very end, and that's because when it starts rotating and the string wraps around, as you can see here, it's got plenty space either side to wrap, and if you attach it right at the end, when it wraps around, it can sometimes just fall off the end of your straw and you won't get the lift effect that you're after. So bring it in a little bit from the end. I'm cheating here, showing you it by rotating it, but what you really need to do is blow on it and see whether you can do it just through the power of your breath. There we go. And that is the first stage working. You could see what difference it makes to change elements of your model. Bigger propeller, taller tower, heavier weight. Have fun, and I'll see you again in part 2.